can't hear anything that's going on up here. It's weird. Even when you use the microphone, it doesn't go back there.
Thought they fixed that with those new speakers.
Yeah, but they,
Okay.
Anyway, welcome to all. So, and thank you, Mary. So the next item on the agenda, we'll be talking about the questions after our review, the questions that we submitted and comments to the authors, and both authors of the report are here. Ed Eichner, who's going to the podium right now, and Dr. Brian House from SMAST. They're both here today, and we appreciate them coming. In case there are any additional technical questions that we need their feedback on. And so I welcome both of you. And this is for the Baker's Pond draft management plan and diagnostic assessment. It's the draft final report. It is on the town website. Thank you, Ed. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, hope you can all hear me. So I went through, I got all the comments, we made all the changes. We've got a marked up copy, so you can see what changes were made. But one of the things that I was really hoping and why we came back today is that we can see if you have a consensus in terms of what you want to support in terms of management strategies. We put a number of options out there. Actually, this is the wrong slide. To talk about meeting the targets. This is the slide that was in the presentation from the last time that talks about how, yeah, just for a refresher, this is the water column projections based on the data are the top two. April is the top one, August is the bottom one. The red line is the target water column mass of phosphorus. And then we went through and we looked at a number of different scenarios that looked at what if you sewer the watershed, what if you do innovative alternative pilot systems that remove phosphorus, what if you do an alum application, what if you do aeration, what if you do dredging, and then we looked at the same set with the maximum amount of phosphorus coming out of the bottom sediments. So we looked at the average conditions and we looked at the maximum. And so we looked at all of those scenarios and we had a discussion based on the phosphorus load, which was this original one. And this is basically on the left-hand side, the left-hand pie, you can see that wastewater is the primary source during the spring. And then once the sediments are activated, the sediments become sort of close to the same amount, a little bit less, but close to the same amount of the phosphorus that's in the water column. So it's wastewater and phosphorus are the two major sources. So when we were having the last discussion, you know, we talked about that the options that were out there could address either or. You're going to see some sort of improvement. The question really was, what was the committee's preferred alternative? What would you like this report to say so that when you go out and talk to the public and to your Board of Selectmen or your select board, what you would like to do, what you would like to support. I guess from my personal perspective, I would say it's going to take time if you're going to go down the wastewater path. It's going to take, as you have seen with Crystal and Pilgrim, it's going to take some time to get there. I think with that in mind, my personal opinion would be if you were going to sort of put out there what you would like to do, my recommendation would be to try to do an alum treatment while you're working on looking at getting a long-term fix, sort of like what was done for Uncle Harvey's Pond. But, you know, I'd like to get your feedback so that when we put the final version of the management plan out there, that we have something that reinforces what your opinion is on this matter.
Right, and item 2 on the agenda was just to briefly go over if the committee had any additional questions or needed clarification based on comments we submitted. And then item 3 was to discuss the recommendations that we might like to put forward. So I guess I just want to address the questions and comments that we submitted to you and Dr. House first, and then we can get into the management recommendations and see if we can come up with a consensus on how the committee may want to proceed going forward. So,
I would not have any more comments. I think we had a good discussion with a lot of comments, and I think I have not gone through carefully, but I have every faith that Ed incorporated all of the comments and questions and changes that we put into it. So I feel like we can be done with that and move on to the next.
and you're going to have a track changes document after meeting with us today and getting any additional.
Right,
Yep.
so we're,
So that's why-
once we get
Yeah.
through this, if
Yep.
there are additional comments,
Right.
especially about what your management
Right,
preference is, then we will have a final version.
okay. Just want to make sure they knew that that track changes will come afterwards. Is there anyone else that wanted to comment on our comments? And Ed Hafner.
Well, I just want to say something about what you just said now in terms of putting in recommendation into the management plan. I'd rather have it's my own personal thinking on this, the management plan be a scientific document as you've made it so far, giving us all the options. I don't think the plan itself, what are you telling us what to do, that's going to be, as you pointed out, a separate decision that this board committee is going to make to the select board, and what we think is best. But I don't think the scientists ought to be, they're giving us the options, but they shouldn't be doing the political or the decision-making for them. They provide us with the info, it's up to us to digest and advise the select board.
Yeah, I don't think they're making a decision for us. They're just giving us their professional opinion, should they be in our seat, what.
Well, Ed sort of suggested he wanted to hear from us and put it in the management plan, and I'm thinking.
Well, so let me clarify. Typically, we write a formal letter to our select board with our recommendations, and Ed and Dr. House will include that with when the draft becomes the final, it will include our letter with the recommendations. So that's what,
As long as it's separate.
it is.
That's the way you've done it.
Yeah, that's what we've done in the
On all
past.
the other ponds, is
Yep.
that we've had this discussion, you've made a decision, that vote is put into the report so that if a select board member
is.
picks it up, they can see this is
I
what
didn't
they.
want you to be under, or, ask Matt to be under pressure to do something.
No,
No,
Just do your science and that's.
oh, yeah.
but we
Believe me,
appreciate,
that's what
we
we'll do.
appreciate their recommendations, just because they've done this for quite a while around the Cape and have a little experience in this area, so, yeah.
So I think that, this is Rich, I think that there's really no difference in what you're saying. You, on page 85 of the report, you just said, given the number of options, it just says it may be advantageous to combine two strategies to provide flexibility, such as partial sewering and/or one alum treatment. I think so, it sounds like it's consistent,
Right.
what you're saying
Right.
here. So it is in there, Ed, but it's, part of the summary for the options.
Right. Thank you, Rich. Were there,
Would it make sense to clarify it a little bit that, the sewering option requires, some substantial effort on the part of the town to pursue the actual feasibility, technical feasibility and cost?
I think they
Yeah,
know that.
that
Yeah,
might
well, I mean,
already
to put
be
it-
in there. but
Yeah, to put that in the report clearly, that, you just can't say, well, we'll sewer.
Yeah,
No,
no,
but I think that, because it does require a lot of analysis, as we discussed during the last meeting.
right, exactly.
and we've done that in the past where we've requested that the town ask the engineering firm to get a cost estimate. That's somewhere in progress for Uncle Harvey's, and I guess next would be the Crystal Pilgrim. That was something that went to town meeting last fall and was approved by the town to ask AECom to get that estimate. So if that is something we want to recommend for Baker, then we would do the same thing. We'd put that recommendation to the select board, because money, funding has to be allocated, and we don't control that at all. So I assume there are no more questions regarding the comments and questions that we submitted, and you, okay. No additional technical clarification or anything? All right.
Oh, so just to clarify, so we didn't officially receive any responses from you guys in that table we sent, like completed or anything like that?
Oh,
So-
no, well, you're gonna get, part of the way we typically do this, we don't have like a formal response to
Right.
comments kind of
She
thing.
explained that
But
to us.
in the interests of making sure that you understand what the changes that were made, we're
Right.
gonna give you a strikeout version
Okay,
of the draft.
okay,
So we're gonna give you the final version, and then we're gonna give you a strikeout version of the final too,
yeah.
so that you can see where all the changes were made.
And was it helpful to have, I don't know if we did a commenting table in the past or not?
No, we never did that.
Was that helpful or not helpful to you? Just out of curiosity.
I mean,
Wasn't intended to be, Not
quite
helpful.
generally, we get comments on things. We've gotten them in all sorts of different kinds of forms.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a different kind of form.
Did you have any questions for us
yeah.
with regard to any of the comments or questions that you received?
No, the only one, the predominant question really is about the management, what you guys want to do.
Yep. So then we will move on to that on the agenda, which is item 3. And just my quick comments, Baker was a little different than the other ponds that we've had management plans completed for, and because there are various options and various combinations with regard to Baker, and you have a situation where wastewater through the watershed is the primary source for most of the year, but then you have some months when it's the sediments, so it was not as easy in my mind where, Uncle Harvey's, it was clearly the sediments needed to be addressed, and it made the decision on the management strategy really easy, but Baker is a little more complicated, as you have pointed out in the report. And I'm not familiar with some of the management strategies that are in the report, because we haven't implemented them before in Orleans, but I found it challenging and interesting, and where I would like some technical guidance is, maybe what combinations of management strategies have been used successfully on the Cape before, and are they something that could be applied to Baker? Is there enough similarity in the ponds, or, need a little guidance maybe, or not guidance out, but technical recommendations, which are in the report, but weeding through the options is a little bit daunting, because there are quite a few, so.
Well, maybe you can help me understand exactly the question that you're asking.
Sorry.
Just to clarify, part of what we're talking about is tackling the sediments. And we've
Right.
talked about tackling sediments, sort of alum, aeration, or dredging. Those are the same 3 strategies that we've talked about here. Wastewater, we've talked about sewering. For Pilgrim and Crystal, the way those pies work out, it's the watershed, it's not the sediments that are the big deal. Uncle Harvey's, definitely the sediments that were the big deal. And Brian and I have gone out there, done the water quality sampling last summer. That alum treatment was very, very successful. We'll see what the longevity of it is, but it was very successful in terms of addressing the water quality. So really, the only thing that's sort of different in this is throwing in the IA systems. And at this point, they're sort of in the experimental DEP land in terms of the way they've been reviewed. So there really isn't a whole lot of experience in terms of their uses, because essentially they are experimental. So that's why, in terms of thinking about this, you've got options that have been used in a lot of different places, the in-lake solutions, and then you've got the watershed solutions, you've got sewering, but that's gonna take some time, and then you have the IA, which creates a whole universe of uncertainties in terms of who's gonna be responsible and how
Right.
that's gonna all filter
Right,
out.
and I know costs were also considered, because there are different costs associated with different management strategies. Judith, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. So to my mind, I agree, Judy, this is a very different situation than the ponds that we've looked at so far. And I think in my mind, there's no doubt but that we have to take care of wastewater and the in sediment, the nutrients coming up from the bottom. That just seems to me to be a no-brainer. We need to do both. One of them isn't going to work long-term or short-term. As to how we deal with the sediments, I think there's lots of different approaches. As you've mentioned, there's aeration, there is the alum. I know some places that are really not happy to use aluminum have been turning to iron filings, landanum, other varieties and things that will basically do the same thing as the alum, but slightly different. I think in terms of how we approach and look at the issues for wastewater, yes, there's soaring. This one, again, is different from Crystal Pilgrim Uncle Harvey's in that the existing sewer pipes are going right next to those. So to hook up a few more properties is a no big deal. I mean, that's easy for me to say, a no big deal, but it's a no big deal. With Baker, you're out in the boonies. So now if you're going to run a pipe from your wastewater plant all the way out to pick up a handful of properties on the far side of Baker Pond, that's a very different issue when you're talking about costs. There's other things besides IA systems. There's just simply simple redirection of effluent to get it away from the pond. Solves the problem for Baker, doesn't solve the problem for the Pleasant Bay system that still has to consider nitrogen that will get that distance. But there could be perhaps a small treatment plant that would deal with it better. I mean, there are other options. I personally, for the wastewater solution, think it makes sense to have this be something that Mike Giggy, as our consultant, is involved at, to look at various creative approaches to be able to come up with the most cost-effective approach that we can then recommend to the select board. So not that I'm saying don't do anything, but I think this requires a little bigger piece, because we've also got the political piece that we can't ignore, that this pond is half in Brewster. And while this may be our action, and while it is the Commonwealth that owns Baker Pond and not the town of Orleans or the abutters or the town of Brewster, when you start doing things like deciding on a treatment for sediments, deciding on wastewater treatment, whatever, I think it's political suicide not to involve the other towns that are involved and the other abutters on the pond to see how they would like to pursue it. So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, as a committee, we can look at what we think is the most optimal sediment sequestration, is that the word? With Brian and Ed's suggestion and help on this. But say there are other alternatives, so that if there are folks from Brewster or putting heads together, if there's a better approach, that could be considered. And I would like and hope that our committee would say, yes, we must address the wastewater issue. But what that specific solution will be needs further work and study from our consultant, from the town's wastewater consultant. So that's where I would be in terms of where this goes with the select board.
Carol.
I think Judith is absolutely right, that we need to look at both the stopping of